Hey, anywhere. Thanks for coming. So today we're going to talk about real-world ITDR, or Identity Threat Detection and Response, for hybrid identity environments. I think in Linda and Cliff's session earlier, we saw most of you were utilizing AD, I think 100%. And I think that as we think about the journey for hybrid within Microsoft, we know that it starts with on-prem, it moves into hybrid, and it becomes cloud. And we want to be able to cover all three of those, and that's where we'll talk today. My name is Jared Ross. I'm a product architect at Entra ID, covering identity security, which is conditional access, multi-factor authentication, the authenticator app, auth methods, and identity protection, which is our risk engine for cloud and hybrid identities. I'm based in Seattle and Redmond. I have a dog and I love sushi.
That's awesome. And my name is Sharon Zhou. I won't say exactly the same thing, but you can see it's a bit of a mouthful, but I focus on Entra. I'm actually from Canada myself, from Vancouver, so that looks like the place. But obviously originally not born and raised there. I was born and raised in England and made the move in 2012. So in terms of what do I do, I have a passion for customers, identity, security. I'm a part of the leadership team of the customer experience engineering team as well, and I get to help head up some of the AI innovation as well. I didn't go there. My boss name is Darby, and she's a chocolate bat. So and I'm looking forward to seeing her as well.
And my dog's Owen, he's a mini doodle.
So let's move on. I think before we start digging into some of the details, I have a question. I'd love to see hands up. You can do double hands up as well. With cyber attacks ramping up over the course of the past year, and to be honest with you, we're nearly towards the end of this year, who's been affected by those? I think everyone can say yes, we've all had that to true. So what I would like to do is I want to take you back to a time when the world was a simpler place. And controlling digital access was relatively straightforward. It was just a matter of setting up the perimeter and letting the right people in. But with the rapid increase in volume of identities, so that's employees, partners, customers, workloads, and to top it off, agent IDs now need to be managed and protected even more. Today, identity attacks increasing in number and sophistication. So I'm going to dig into some numbers here as well. So there are 1,287 password attacks every second, which translates to 111 million per day. This past year, password breach replay attacks grew to 5.8 billion per month, while phishing attacks rose to 31 million per month, and password spray attacks soared to 5 million per month. That's some big numbers, right? And I suspect by the end of this year, there's probably going to be even more of a rise to that. We do know it's virtually impossible to anticipate and address the unlimited number of access scenarios that can occur across an organization, especially when it includes third-party systems, platforms, applications, and devices outside an organization's control. Identity is not just about directories, access, and network. Security challenges have become much broader. So we need to be able to secure for every customer, partner, and employees. And with the rise of Gen I, microservices, sensors, networks, and devices, and databases. He can use the work. That's cool. Yeah. I'm sorry, give me one moment, please. Okay, so as we proliferate, as I said, most of the microservices and the gen services as well. Now, the speed and scale of cyber attacks is increasing rapidly. So that's both for our customers and ourselves. When I say ourselves, broadly, me and Microsoft. We have over 300 billion identities across humans and machines. This space is becoming even more critical. When someone falls victim to a phishing email, the average time an attacker to access private data is between 1 hour and 12 minutes. In 2024, that became 60 seconds and under. And we're also observing an increase in mass phishing campaigns utilizing Gen AI. When someone falls victim to a phishing email, sorry, I always said that, on the global scale, it's growing and password spray attacks have increased to 7,000 per second. And we're also seeing a sophistication of attacks with 111% increase of token theft in 1 year. These are becoming more complex and attacks with even greater cohesion across disciplines and functions. Now, in today's threat landscape, attackers don't operate in silos. They're interconnected systems to identify vulnerable paths. We begin with the email and collaboration domain, and that's where a user receives a phishing email and it targets them. They click on the email and the attacker gains access to their device. So that's an endpoint that becomes a launch pad for lateral movement. From there, the attacker compromises a user, so an identity that unlocks access to user groups and the border tenants. With elevated privileges, the attacker gains access to the domain, and thus breaching file shares and eventually block storage accounts where you have potentially sensitive information residing. And then finally, in the workloads domain, you are targeting storage accounts, disrupting operations, and we have potentially high value assets that are included in that as well. And this is why modern identity security must be a team sport, right? If the attackers are not doing it in silos, then the teams must be collaborating together as well. It requires tight coordination across security ops teams, identity, IT, and compliance. And ITDR connects the dots between access controls and active threat defense, enabling organizations to detect identity-based attacks and containing them faster and respond with precision. So identities is one of the most common attack vectors. We see ITDR requiring a tight partnership with IAM and extended detected response and response teams. Now, we've already talked a little bit about how organizations have to stop attacks, but imagine needing to coordinate these different teams to work together. Effectively, they're using different tools, they have different workflows, and in some cases, they're actually having different data sets. Now, our focus has been able to streamline how these teams work together. Microsoft is in a unique position, not only due to the scale of our global infrastructure, but because we're the only vendor that has deep knowledge in IAM and XDR, and we're a leader in both. So while we've built unique personas experience for Entra for identity admins, and then we also have the SOC analyst for for XDR, and there was a consistency of data, alerts, and workflow. So that is effectively policies that are created in Entra by an ID admin are brought front and center to a SOC analyst when they're doing their investigations.
And now we'll zoom in on the identity admin. And we're going to cover both the identity and the SOC teams today. But we'll first start off with the foundational IAM and modern auth. I think the core pillar of ITDR all up is how do I protect my identity infrastructure? Whether or not that's on-prem, whether or not that's hybrid, it's deployed in the cloud, or utilizing a SaaS service like Entra ID. The foundation is so core because that's going to help to enable new scenarios in the future like empowering AI for security. We need to provide real-time adaptive access every time someone signs in. Conditional access today, which we'll talk about in the next slide, processes over 90 billion conditional access evaluations per day. And included within there is also identity protection, which does the risk determination every time someone signs in to every tenant in Microsoft and any hybrid user that's synced to the cloud. This enhances threat intelligence and response actions between the identity and SOC teams. And the future of protection is also very prevalent. As Sharon mentioned, AI and non-human identities are becoming front and center for attackers, but also front and center for productivity scenarios. And constantly what we're trying to do is balance productivity with risk and security. So now on to my favorite slide, which is where does everyone sit today in this current graph? I think that, as I mentioned, and I saw Guido Sturgeon said, I've got to change my dog's name now, which is upsetting because he used his password. But one of the journeys that Microsoft has been on for a long time is getting away from the left. We know that passwords, as Sharon mentioned, are constantly being the attack pattern for attackers in our environments today. 7,000 password sprays per second, just as a grounding force. And we know that when they can get the password, they're likely going to get into the account and they're going to be able to bypass from there. As another statistic, 45% of Entra users are utilizing MFA today. Overwhelmingly, our non-privileged users are not using MFA. That's a scary statistic, one that we've tried and driven over and over again, but I'm going to make the pitch again today. So on the left-hand side, we start with passwords. This is a 4 authentication method. It cannot be protected. We process something like 700 million to 1 billion stolen credentials per week. We then utilize those in our identity protection offering, whether or not that's for synced users or cloud users. We then detect those on the dark web. We purchase them from all different sources. We receive them from law enforcement. And we also do this through threat hunting within Microsoft. We process those through pipelines, and then we go in and validate them. And we'll put users through self-service password reset, we'll revoke their sessions, etc. We then move into FAIR, the slightly better password plus something else. And this is going to be SMS and voice. Really common attack patterns here are going to be things like SIM swapping and impersonation attacks. We really want to move away from these as well. These are also costly for organizations as well. And being able to send out text messages that are really easy to be able to intercept is something we'll want to move away from. The better is password and something else. And so I think that this is where people start to get really familiar if you're utilizing Entra today. But I've got the Microsoft Authenticator push notification. I've got software OTPs and hardware OTPs. And both of those are going to give me some level of protection beyond that, but are still phishable. I get into better, which is going to be passwordless. And I think some of the folks who were with me last night know at Microsoft, I haven't changed my password in the last 8 years. I've been at Microsoft for 10 years. And so it really grounds us in, we know we can get off of them, but we know that there's a journey to get there. And so we want to help you win that journey as we get there. Passwordless within the Microsoft Authenticator app, which we call phone sign-in, is going to be a great first step to get your users there, especially if you're using Authenticator already today. But where we get into the best is really the phishing resistant. This is in it. Alice talked about this in his keynote. For a fun fact, Alice and I used to work together at Microsoft, and so it's a really cool full circle moment. So actually, he drove a lot of this innovation when it comes to authentication. For phishing resistant, we've got a number of different options available here, and it comes in all shapes and sizes because we want to make it easy to adopt. Windows Hello for Business, obviously, was a massive deployment fleet of Windows across all of your environments. This is a really quick and easy way of getting set up. You can do this in Entra, you can do this on-prem, and it's a really great option to get to phishing resistant. FIDO2 security keys. This is going to be a scenario that in general, I believe is more niche towards privileged admin scenarios, maybe disconnected scenarios, struggling worker scenarios, but it may not be best for all of your users due to the cost and complexity of deploying hardware keys, dealing with the recoverability of them, etc. Certificate-based authentication, which is an MFA, that can be done through Entra certificate-based authentication. Passkeys in the Microsoft Authenticator app. And so when I start my journey with phone sign-in, I can then enable and create passkeys directly within there. And now I have a device-bound passkey as well that can be used instead of any of the 4 credentials I mentioned. And then finally, as a first-class citizen, as you'll notice, as a Microsoft employee, I'm using Mac, and we're utilizing Platform SSO there as well. And so over the last 2 versions of macOS, it did tremendous work in partnership with Microsoft to bring really what we believe is really close to Windows Hello for Business in terms of user experience. And again, I go back to that principle, which is I need to balance between the productivity of my users, which is not comping them for MFA every single time, and making sure that if I am to get compromised, I have layers of protection and defense at each layer. And now we get into conditional access. Conditional access is Microsoft's Zero Trust engine, which combines identities, network, endpoint, and applications together. It then utilizes a policy-driven workflow engine, which evaluates a number of different characteristics, whether or not it's about the sign-in, or it's conditioning on the devices, or device compliance, as was mentioned in a previous session, or network with global secure access and internet and private access, for example. When you define policies, these policies can be targeted at groups of users, all your users, for apps, specific apps. Once I condition on those, I can then take actions with them. And this verify every access attempt doesn't mean that I have to prompt every time. It just means that based on the conditions, whether or not they're identity protection, which utilize machine learning and data from across the attack chain, or if I just want to simply make sure that the human is who they say they are, I want to be able to have different options to be able to do step up, as well as self-service remediation as well. So when I'm in identity protection, for example, and my user becomes high risk because they have been detected that a password spray has occurred against their account, rather than sending them over to the help desk where now they have to go do verification, I now have to worry about an impersonation attack with my help desk. Instead of doing all of that, I want to put them through self-service as much as possible, but still give the opportunity for the SOC teams to be able to investigate after the breach has occurred, for example, or after a compromise has occurred, but with the insights from the identity teams that a conditional access policy has been applied, and that these are the actions that the platform took before a human should go investigate. Part of our job as well is making sure that the SOC is productive and they're focused on what is core to their mission, which is evicting and quarantining and evacuating threats. And so as I mentioned, got a bunch of different options here, whether or not it's allow, require, etc. We have even more granularity in several of these as well. Require MFA, for example, I can do something like require authentication strengths. And so I can say for groups of users, or for high privileged applications, or for administrators, I want to make sure that I only allow FIDO2 or phishing resistant credentials. And so we've got some built-in authentication methods that allow us to do that, but we also allow you to create your own custom ones and then go and be able to allow us based on AA bullets for a given FIDO2 scenario. And so a lot of flexibility here. And that's ultimately where I get access to my applications, my data, and my infrastructure, whether or not it's running on the cloud or running on premises and being able to be enabled either via application proxy or via Entra ID access and internet access. And I think with that, I will hand it off to Sharon to talk about some of the innovations in conditional access, as well as across Entra.
Thank you. So how do we make it better? This is how to make it better. It's not clicking. This is not good. Try again. Well, we'll have to.
Can we restart it?
Start it.
Can you flick from the back? Try.
Yeah. Start rotation. We just started talking about our friend. Yeah, so you attack stuff lots. I think one thing I'll say, just as we're on this slide, is that the real-time evaluation engine, I think, is really key when it comes to Entra ID. Because we evaluate every session that comes in, again, 90 billion evaluations per day, we're able to evaluate not only what's happening within the sign-in itself, but also things that are happening outside of the sign-in as well. And so things coming in from Defender or Purview. And so I can condition on insider risk, in addition to saying if there's a likelihood of compromise, medium or high risk, and they want to put them through remediation as well, or terms of use, etc. As I have a lot of flexibility when it comes to the business rules, I can set up alongside the technical rules.
I think that's important materials and the integration of the
Yep.
That's a big cool thing. If you think about it, hey, is my device compliant? Is it mandatory by organization? Is it BUIRD? Now you've got that integration with conditional access policy as well.
Yep.
So,
and you can use third-party APM as well. And so that integration is native. And I think, again, Jordan, it goes back to, can I apply layers of defense here so that I have applicability across the devices, across the network, across the endpoints. And I think we saw in a previous session as well, like the combination of multiple of those coming together really is a very powerful security posture.
yeah. And I wasn't well. I will wait actually. I was like, when on my step, but you know, oh, I go. Yes, okay. Oh, this get off? Is that what we're doing?
Yes. We're not. And no one here is it in DR, right? It disaster recovery. Wrapped up there.
Things that will be to get victory sessions so in the gun is
There is a block there, yeah, but we're being people.
Yeah, we got paralysis there.
Yeah.
The savage off is the other stuff.
I can just pull you out report. Okay, I don't want to. That's okay. I mean, we can take a question or two. If you have any questions on Entra ID that we don't.
If there's questions on what was already mentioned now, let's use the time.
We also, I'll just pitch it really quick again. We have the panel tomorrow on Entra and Active Directory, piece of it, but also these join us. I saw two guys over there. Sure.
Yeah, our organization listed they don't want to use Zillow for business. How can we convince them that they should?
Why do you want to be convinced? Oh, sure. Sorry. My organization has said I don't want to use Windows Hello for business. How do I convince them? I guess the question is, what is your environmental requirements?
Why did I make convincing?
Yeah.
People outside by department said no, turn it off, gate policy. You got to. So what can I tell them that I was already told them?
Are you using passwords today?
Yes.
They're phishable. That's what I'm told. And joking aside, I met with a May last week. 3,000 out of the 80,000 employees didn't have MFA. And I also showed them their attack compromise graph. And that's enough of a conversation. What I would recommend to you is take a look at identity protection. And I'm not a salesperson, I really don't care if you choose to use it or not. One of the benefits of it, though, is that there's something called the impact analysis workbook. And what it allows you to do is it can show your leaders, everyone for that matter, it can show your leaders what your current environmental risks are and what blocks would be put in place, etc. I think you will be astounded to find how often your environment is getting attacked. And I think that that will be a good leverage point for your leaders to talk about why moving away from passwords, or at least combining them with a much stronger authentication method, would move the needle on your phishing threats. I would expect you probably are seeing phishing as well at your organization.
Also, there's another case. Each that boss will give to the password and opens the boss's email.
Well, I think that's one angle, right? I think the other angle is... Yeah.
The big person is saying
It is an approach. Maybe the recommended approach is red teamer. Red team and blue team exercises I think are also really robust, whether they're using a cybersecurity firm or not.
I think I'd be curious if you think about it. I work with a number of customers, right? Take the C-level suites, you talk with their CISOs, and so it really starts from there, right? If you can start, build that narrative. Okay, this is what we have on the landscape today. Bring the numbers, ring the bags, show them, and get that buy-in from there, and it's just going to trickle down. It won't be a case of X department. I don't want to do this, and yes.
Продолжила рынку пан.
That's good.
You said that.
Yeah, no, I mean, cyber insurance underwriters. It's I think your point you're trying to make is wow. There's a tremendous cost to paying for this, and then they're not requiring that an organization actually meet the security requirements to get underwriting.
You don't get sorry and compliance requirements, right? Some are just like, oh, passwords in the hub. Well, we got that this time and say, you check passwords, but you know.
One thing I'd also just really quickly say, and then I want to move on to the other questions, is there are other authentication methods available too. If Windows Hello maybe not be a comfortable option for your organization, passkeys in the auth app or kind of 2 keys, there's a lot of options.
There is, but then you get the, and I'm saying this from the perspective I just fucking, I've seen it myself, is that then people turn around and say, I don't want to use my device.
Yeah.
Right? So there's probably a flip side. So
The whole thing is when you go back from this conference, you could tell they said so.
He's always
Some of the question.
I think
Yeah.
In the line for the questions, can you turn them on? Hold it.
try to yell and I'll repeat it.
I noticed that Wei was explaining where to place user activity and what responses to do. There was a part that just said machine learning. I need to know what that does, like exactly, because it's just like my industry needs to be able to explain how to do those determinations. Is that something? How would I know how the machine, like what the machine's logic was, if at all? Is that something also?
We don't share direct logic with how we calculate risk, partially because threat actors are out there as well. But what I will say is what we include within the models is all the sign-in data, all of audit log data, all the directory change data, etc. In addition to all of the Defender suite of alerts that are applicable to identity compromise, as well as anything related to data with Purview, as well as those number of on-prem signals via EFS and Entra Connect. We utilize.
Are they worried?
He was with us. You should have used an eye. No, we utilize data both in the current sign-in. That's the next session. Oh, don't look. We use data from both the current session as well as historical sessions to be able to do comparisons on anomalies, utilizing heuristics, etc. We don't usually go into much more detail than that. That being said, all of our defections get output into Defender XDR, into Sentinel, and can be investigated in Entra ID as well. And we send a number of metadata ties there as well,
which can be utilized, which can be used to start to build their robust inspections in XPR. So happy to pop offline. It a public correlate talk. We're really testing your like. We're still waiting. So waiting here. Yeah. Go ahead. We're with you. Sure.
So,
it's our case.
Yeah. I can't answer the person best again on mic.
He's in ADR. That SecOps is very corpus. If he actually did like what is supposed because he could did. Oh. See, I understand that. You just want to know how that. You received that better, or another enter provided you with their secret sauce. No, that's the problem. Is he's still updating.
I did my view is we should think about the outcomes versus the implementation, because I think that if we marked a user that got password scraped, we'll give you the data that shows where it got password scraped. And so I think that it's the context that's probably the most important, versus what are the individual data sources and methods that go into it. Again, and I think you'll see in almost the session tomorrow and other sessions, there's a lot of data that is available as well. And that data, like, it can be utilized for custom detections and your own logic as well. Our recommendation is combine both. And so you have a defense in depth approach where you can say, I both have identity protection for the risk evaluation, but I also want to make sure that my SOC teams can do full investigations on their own without relying on which sheets of size. It looks like we might, or we're getting close.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, we jumped pretty late. Thank you. Okay, I'm Sharon. She's Sharon. Sorry to be late, guys. My dog's Owen. Great to be in Charleston. We're super excited. Please don't use passwords. Conditional access is super important. And now we're going to talk about the innovations in conditional access. Here we go.
Okay, this one I was super excited to talk to you about. If you have the mode with...
It's been really nice to talk to you all.
General availability, folks, we have now got the conditional access policy optimization agent, and breathe. So the policy, the optimization agent in itself is there to help. It's a digital assistant. That's what we're going to refer to it as. It's embedded within Entra. Today, it operates as report-only mode, so it evaluates your CA policies across your tenants, identifying gaps, redundancy, high-risk configurations without requiring manual prompts. Now, the agent itself does the full deep analysis, and that's basically looking at all your policies, what's overlapping, what can be merged. It will flag unprotected users. It will make recommendations such as enabling MFA, consolidating and overlapping the policies, and most importantly, excluding your service accounts from risky scopes. Now, how does that work? It leverages telemetry to surface the cell policies, the risky sign-in patterns that Jared was talking about, and it provides actionable insights. Now, you can get email summaries, and now you can actually talk to the agents by natural language. Most importantly, what I would really like to focus on as well is the integration that we have with ServiceNow. So in this agent, I do actually remember this, so a bit of a backstory. I actually started talking to my counterparts in engineering and PM group about this agent back in January. Within 6 weeks, he had a prototype. We were able to get in front of customers, actually 3 their feedback. What do you need? How can we do it? And we spoke to a number of customers who are, for example, our banking industry. They're like, look, Redo is great, but I can't make that change without going through my change management configuration. And that's where the service now integration comes from. And so we are listening. We want to be able to take your feedback, make this agent even better. And even beyond that, we'll have more further announcements that you can't share today, because we're only a month away from Ignite. Yes, I was going to do the Ignite talk. We actually have them coming, and we have additional agents coming as well.
One thing I would just add on the gap analysis, it's a race for showing layers that they are not protected, and being able to close that loop is so key.
100%. And that's been a key differentiator for all of our customers, is that someone sits down and says, well, hang on a minute, are those 60 conditional access policies, do I actually need 60 of them? And that's where the AGs come in and is being able to help customers be able to evaluate their policies. And it also then says that we have Security Copilot in Entra as well. For those who aren't familiar with it, Security Copilot, we went GA of April 1st of last year. It was actually April 1st. It is a AI leveraged SOC analyst tool, right? It was catered for SOC analysts. Not that, right? We did it for the 1st of April. But it's a breadth of across our Microsoft security products, and especially in Entra. So Security Copilot within Entra introduces an integrated remediation workflow. And that's between Entra and that's between our Defender portals as well. So enables security operators to be able to execute corrective actions directly from insights that have been called from your tenants. You can do it. It's all by natural language. You'll go into the scope. Hey, you know what? I need to know which of my users are not covered. You don't have MFA. Do I need passkeys? Of course, we all need passkeys, right? I think that's that point too. And that's what exists today within Entra. And then I want to touch a little bit about what our customers are wanting as well, right? So we're seeing customers seeking the same level and control and visibility for agent IDs. That is correct. We made an announcement during those that you can now actually have agent IDs in your tenant. So if you go into your Entra tenant today, you will click on agent ID, you will see a bunch of agents that have been created within your environment. And so we'll have more to come. Like, I really wish I could tell you a little bit more, but like, she's right the corner, I still haven't nearly that. But customers are asking for an engine that's continuously evaluating these types of risks, and that's including the device compliance, the sign-in anomalies, the session telemetry, and most importantly, enforcing real-time actions decisions on the agents themselves, regardless if it's on cloud, if it's on-prem, and it's hybrid environments as well. So as I said, agent IDs are registered in Entra ID today. So when you go in, we have the connection with Azure AI Foundry. We also have a couple of 3Ps that are in there as well. You can see that today. It will make you feel very uncomfortable. It really will. I was just speaking to one of my customers, like, bring up the portal, let's have a look. I'm like, Sharon, what the heck is this? I've got 1,700 agents in your environment. I was, you're welcome. How do I protect it? And that's why I come in, right? So those type of conversations can be difficult to have, but it's good to have that visibility as well. And when we go upon the agents that are in there today, we want to think about lifecycle policies. How can we make sure the agents have the right access, if we don't need them anymore, they're actually removed. And then we have RBAC roles. We have permissions, granular control, making sure they have the right access to the right resources. It's basically like human identity, but it's basically from this agent on top of that. And even more so, when we had the session around SSE and global secure access as well, we're looking at network layer segmentation, right? That's prompt injection protection and discovering the AI discovery as well. So aligning this with our zero trust principles, we want to ensure our customers can use their AI deployments, but also ensure that they have protection as their organizations continue to evolve.
Thank you. And I've heard across organizations every day similar to Sharon, where it's like, not only do they have a lack of visibility today, but they also have lack of control. But at the same time, every organization's board is saying, how do we become AI first? As we want to make sure that we can enable that in a secure, enterprise compliant way. Now we're going to jump into the SOC team. I think a probably relatively unusual topic for an identity conference, because something that I've focused on a lot over the last 2 years is how will we enable the SOC with identity context, with identity actions, with identity workflows and data. And we talked about this being a team sport, because just like having multiple disparate tools where you have scenes, having organizational scenes as well can drive attackers to be able to find those scenes and exploit them. And so from a SOC perspective, we want to make sure that there's comprehensive coverage. That's going to be dedicated sensors for on-prem via Microsoft Defender for Identity. These are going to be connections into on-prem infrastructure, whether or not that's ADDS or ADCS, etc. We want to be able to enrich the visibility that the organization, the SOC has at the time of investigation and at the time of response. And so being able to correlate alerts across different providers and give relevant data and insights so that when the SOC is investigating, they know where to prioritize and they know how to act. And then finally, bring in that security context into Lens for the SOC teams by the identity posture, alerts, and response actions in the context of the SOC. I think one of the things that Sharon mentioned as well is we've got persona-based experiences for both the identity and the SOC teams. When you go into Entra, it's all about the identity landscape. I can cover on-prem scenarios with GSA and application proxy. But when I want to go and look across the threat landscape, I need to jump into Defender XDR to do that. And what we're doing here as part of ITDR is investing in making sure that the SOC teams have a great identity experience as well. And so from a comprehensive coverage perspective, we cover any identity, whether or not it's human or non-human, any environment, whether or not it's Active Directory, on Entra, but also Okta, third-party IDPs, and other SaaS identities as well. Any component as well. We need to make sure that we're covering every aspect of the infrastructure, whether or not it's hosted in the cloud via Entra, or whether or not it's on-prem, utilizing the deployments that we talked about in the first sessions today. Domain controllers, ADFS, ADCS, Entra Connect, as well as all the applications, PAM, IGA data, etc. This all feeds into your own unique identity fabric. When we look at John on the surface has an identity. He then logs in and he's now got several identities. And these may be spanning across cloud and on-prem. They may be spanning across third-party SaaS applications, or just completely disconnected scenarios altogether. You've got another path there where you see CyberArk leading into multiple other accounts as well. This is unique to every environment, but what's not unique about this is the complexity of the identity landscape in your environment. For John, this is a very typical graph that we would see for a lot of users. We hope that they're 100% federated and going through OAuth and all of that. It's not the reality. And so we want to meet customers where they are by being able to paint this picture. And so when I've got any identity, whether or not it's human and non-human, I've got to feed in data from a bunch of disparate sources so that I can enrich the visibility to your own identity fabric. And so I guess taking information about the privileges of the user, for example. I know that they have global admin eligibility. That's a risk to my environment. And I want to make sure that when the SOC goes and logs in, they see that they're privileged. They see that the MFA devices that they have registered or not registered. But we also give them discrete actions as well, so that when they're responding to those incidents, they could do something like a revoke session or a block user directly from Defender, making it so that they don't have to move between experiences, but also enabling the SOC to be independent and to be able to act with expediency. With all that information, I need to be able to make sure that that disparate information feeds into how I protect my environment holistically. And that comes up via posture. We have an initiative within the Defender experience in ISPM, which is Identity-Specific Posture Recommendations for Posture Management. That falls under XSPM. These are going to be surfaced across both on-prem, hybrid, and cloud. They cover inputs for both Entra and from MDI, as well as other Defender offerings that may cover identity compromise. And this helps your organization to make recommendations on how to secure your environment. Maybe the Windows for Business example is a good one here, where we're going to recommend phishing-resistant authentication here. We're going to recommend an MFA policy. We're going to recommend that you lock down certain parameters within Active Directory. Each one of these is also going to help so that you can see, okay, if I do this, this is the attack graph that will close because of the action that I took, for example. Next, we'll look at the incident level visibility. The incident level visibility is kind of core to the XDR platforms within Microsoft. We take in data, I think 84 trillion signals across all of the Microsoft security offerings, to be able to build a correlation engine so that when a compromise occurs, and I think to start off, 80% of compromises that we see today start with an identity-based compromise of some sort. That means, in most cases, it was a password attack or a very, very lightweight spear phishing attack, etc. When those come in, there's likely other things that are happening in your environment right now. But you don't get to necessarily see that if you're working in your own identity silo. And we want to be able to break that apart so that when a compromised user who had a stolen credential then moves laterally into an Azure subscription or moves to be able to add a registration method or an authentication method to my account, I want to be able to paint that picture for the SOC team so that they see the full timeline of events that took place, be able to then zoom in on the user specifically, and then ultimately be able to act on them, as I mentioned. And so being able to not only correlate, but also respond when issues come up. And this is going to be cross domain. And so when we give the identity view, and I'll show that in our demo in a moment, I'm going to be able to see that John Doe or Jared Ross has a user account in AD, and a user account in Salesforce, the user account in Okta. And because of that, I want to be able to paint that full picture so that when instant correlation happens, it's able to show that not only did Jared's password get compromised, but also that threat actor moved and was able to gain access to data or a sensitive infrastructure, for example. And so with that, I'm going to jump over and I am going to jump into a demo. Yeah. So the last part of this, excuse me, is the automatic attack disruption. And likely if you're utilizing Defender today, you see this, it's automatically enabled for your tenants unless you've excluded specific accounts. But this is the closed loop between when I define my conditional access policy, which is the front door of accessing anything with Entra or anything that's hybrid. I want to be able to make sure that if I wasn't able to detect it as part of those conditional access evaluations, and it then gets handed off to another platform that's autonomous in nature, it looks at not only the identity, but also at the network data, device data, app data, data access via purview, etc. And then it will make a very high confidence decision whether or not it needs to disrupt more than what conditional access did. It takes in insight from the output of your conditional access policy. So if Sharon, for example, went through a password reset, it's going to know that as well, so that it's not going to push you to do that again. But more importantly than not doing that again, it also allows you to be able to know that when an attack occurs, we can contain it across the attack chain. And so the output of this is oftentimes that it's going to mark a device for containment or a user for containment. And that could be things like rotating a password, disabling, revoking the sessions, or on the device side, it's disabling, MDD doing network isolation, etc. And so the power of this is really that we get to close the loop one more time. When the attack disruption occurs, we also notify Entra ID again. And so Sharon's account now gets marked as compromised in Entra as well. And what that means is that our machine learning process actually learned that behavior. It learned that the characteristics coming out of attack disruption meant that we now need to learn this again in Entra so that we can protect it in the future. And now I think it's the demo. And so with the demo, I'll start off by saying we're going to go into conditional access as the identity admin. And the identity admin is going to go and create a policy. The policy is going to be something specifically for targeting all users, and it's going to be for grant controls of permission management, etc. And so if we just take a look, and my demo is recorded, and so I'm going to talk through it. But in this case, it's going to be for phishing resistance. I'm going to target all my users. I'm going to target all of my apps. I'm not going to do a network condition here specifically, but I am going to condition based on two additional factors. One, I'm going to do user risk, which is going to be the identity protection. This is going to be where if a user gets compromised as a whole, I want to be able to detect that. And then if I'm utilizing purview as well, I get to also mark to make sure that if they're elevated, to take additional steps. And so I've combined two conditions here. And now I'm going to say, I want to require phishing resistant authentication. And so with this, I can now combine a bunch of different conditions together that ultimately results in me having a robust policy for my organization. In this case, I've created as report only. We have three modes: report only, on, or enabled, and off. Report only is going to give me insights about who is affected by this policy before I go and enable it. As Sherry mentioned, we've got the conditional access optimization agent. This is constantly running in your environment, though it can be triggered as well. And what this allows us to do, as Sharon mentioned, is take in all the insights across your conditional access policies and make recommendations, give you insights about it, and then ultimately results in either a conversation with it or action. Action is going to be the most important part of this, though, because I want to make sure that my conditional access policies are robust in nature and have protections. And so there's a bunch of different capabilities within here. There's suggestions, and I think this interface is probably even a little old comparatively to what it was a few weeks ago. But you'll see that there are just a number of suggestions that constantly are coming up. And as you close them, you'll see to those close as well. A bunch of different customizations you can do within here as well and create some instruction sets. Finally, on the Entra side or the identity side, you'll see recommendations. And this is the SSPM or ISPM view that I showed you on the Defender side. Here is specifically the identity context. And so you'll see information across security, best practices, and Defender for identity. And so you see your full landscape and tenant across the board. And so you'll see a recommendation for the Entra Connect wizard, for example. Now we'll jump in as the SOC persona. And as the SOC persona, I'll go into the Defender XDR portal. And the first thing I'm going to jump into is the identity dashboard. This is our ITDR dashboard that covers cloud users, hybrid users, and on-prem users. It shows me a bunch of insights right up front for me to make decisions on. What products are included, what I'm licensed for, what my overall posture or secure score is. It gives me front and center information of all of my privileged accounts as well. Those are going to be great targets for your attackers, but they're also going to be great insights for your SOC teams as well. We bring in information across the incident views, the risky views for risky users, and all of those come together. We're then going to go into the identity assets plate. And the identity assets plate is where we bring in all of the different identities. That graph that I showed you earlier, Garanix. This is going to give me a bunch of different types, whether or not it's users and service accounts. You'll see agents that are in the future. On the identity provider side, you'll see things like Entra, of course, an Active Directory, but also we have Okta users here as well. And so now for the first time, I can paint a more full picture of what my identity landscape looks like, whether or not it's running in on-prem, cloud, or hybrid. And then subsequently, a bunch of additional tag, criticality levels, access statuses, etc. Okay, I was hoping it did freeze. Criticality level as well is very powerful because it's calculating based on your organization's environment. And so based on the combination of privilege and where you are in the org chart, we'll mark it as critical as well. In this case, we filtered on the identity protection risk level. We'll go into Michael Stott, and he is risky. We'll notice for a few reasons though. His MFA status is disabled, even though he's got some MFAs registered. But he's had a high risk in Entra. He's had a medium insider risk within Purview. And even within Purview, I can now get a zoomed in view of the timeline of all the actions that got taken, but connected back to the identity so that I have awareness of what's happening in the context. You'll also notice on the right-hand side, and it will come up with some more information in just a moment, we've got an embedded view with Copilot as well. It gives an incident summary of what's going on specifically for Michael Stott and insights across Entra and Defender of what's going on. You can also see that Michael Scott has a bunch of conditional access policies that are also targeting him. I don't need to jump into Entra and go view those. I can view those as the SOC analyst, understand what grant controls may be available or block controls, etc. And then finally, I can see the incidents that are associated to Michael Stott. He is really dangerous in our environment. And so, as you can see, we've got some additional tags on that, whether or not it's for a primary account or whether or not that's for a critical asset as well. We'll jump into the incident. And when we're in the incident, this is where we're going to get a bunch of task level views too on the Copilot summary. And the power of Security Copilot is it gets to bring together a lot of data and actions from across all of the Microsoft security offerings. And so what's cool about here is you'll see I've got a contact in Teams option. If I had the necessary PIM permissions, I'd also be able to suspend the user or disable the user, both in Active Directory and in the cloud. And so I can make sure that my response actions are robust in nature and they cover the full spectrum of the attack sheet. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it. It's exciting to talk about hybrid, of course, but even more exciting to talk about what the future of the identity SOC looks like. And we're here tomorrow for the panel, but also if you have any questions after this, feel free to follow up as we preview the topics as well.
First of all, also for your disease during our little break, or break up, I should say, yeah, and you've done great in time. Sure, you wanted to say something else?
No, I was just going to say, talking obviously with what area to cover as well, you'll see a lot coming from, especially in Entra, around our AI innovations too, right? Agent ID is just being one of the, how we're working with our 1P partners and 3D partners. And additionally, being able to integrate them with an XDR. You know, when we look at it, especially is in the role that I made, we speak to customers, it's not just about a specific persona. It's about, okay, how can we do this and how can we work across our security tiers, you know, to be able to bring all of this together as well.
Let's cover even more of that tomorrow in the panel. Yeah, and take the chance for questions tomorrow. You can even raise them ahead of time, as I said, this event team. Thanks again for being here. It was great having you.
Thank you.
Thanks,